How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. As you know, guys, I've been covering the Olney House case, R.C. Horsch and his son Eugene Horsch, and the disappearance of four women that we know of at this time. Two are considered deceased, the other two still missing. We're looking at people that have been missing for I think it's going to go into decades, but as of right now, I think Gabrielle is what, 2012? Is that the furthest I think we have going back right now? I mean, the investigation obviously is ongoing. They have a lot to work through. You got about 600,000 images, 70,000 videos, over 10,000 pages of written material. So there's a lot of work that is happening right now. I'm sure it's being divvied out by a task force, and they're trying to figure this out. So I was curious about Kensington. See it coming up. It looks like that's where R.C. Horsch, his father Raymond Horsch, and maybe Eugene, I don't know, but looks like that's where Raymond went to pick up his models. And I saw a video that gives a tour of Kensington. And guys, it's bad. I have some areas of this video that I want to break down. I'm not going to show the whole video, but I'll show parts of it. And if you guys don't mind, I would like for you guys to watch the whole video just to give the person credit. This was really some good work that this person did. Let me just show you. I'm going to have certain parts we're going to break down that I feel will open our eyes a little bit more, not just this area, but also Raymond's connection to it, but also the connection of those that are addicted to. So this comes from a channel called Peter Santinello, so it's self-named. He's got about 4.2 million followers, and the name of this video is Inside America's Largest Open Drug Market. Let me see if I can show you a picture of the. This is a picture of the thumbnail. Hold on, I'm going to do it from my phone. So bear with me so you guys can see it. It's a very interesting video. I watched it last night. That's the cover. That's him walking with the guy Buddy, who shows him around. Buddy at the very beginning even tells him that he has backup, so you're going to see security with him. One person acting as security. Let me see. So I got some notes here, so bear with me. Let's see. All right, these are my notes. So I'm going to show you. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I fix my notes at the wrong area. All right, so what I did was I have a couple of parts I'll show you from this video, a couple of good clips that I think will definitely draw your attention to the whole video after you watch this show. But I thought we could point out and address what we're seeing. So again, while we wait for the next major development involving 417 West Chew Avenue, I want to do something a little different. Throughout this investigation, one place continues to come up, and that's Kensington. We talked about Blair Tonzelli spending time there. We talked about Raymond Horsch reportedly going into Kensington, obtaining drugs there, and connecting with women struggling with addiction for his photography and videos. I'm also hearing that Gabrielle Amarando may have been in one of his videos or movies because people are messaging me. She was the young lady who went missing around 2012. And by the way, for Gabrielle Amarando and Maribel, her last name always gets to me, but for Maribel, the family, they've been looking for these girls for years. Maribel since 2018, Gabrielle since 2012. They're finding out around the same time we are, which was a couple of days ago, that they were connected to this house, and now they believe these two girls are deceased, but there's still no body. was hoping to have Russ on one day to discuss the disposal process. So again, we talked about Raymond Horsch reportedly going to the Kensington, obtaining drugs there, and connecting with women struggling with addiction for his photography and videos. And we now know Blair herself became part of Raymond's photographic world. But I realized something, and this is what I keep saying. Raymond went into Kensington looking for women struggling with addiction. But unless you actually see the environment we're talking about, I don't know if that sentence completely registers. So today I want to take you directly into Kensington through portions of a documentary that was filmed there. This video was filmed in 2024, so I don't want anyone assuming everything we're seeing represent Kensington exactly as it exists today. And this is certainly not all of Kensington. This is a real Philadelphia neighborhood. Families live there. Children grow up there. I say that again. Children grow up there. Families live there. People run businesses there. There are churches, outreach organizations, police officers, medical professionals, and residents working every day to improve their community. But what this video does allow us to see is something extremely relevant to the Olney House investigation. By the way, the Olney House is about 3 miles away from Kensington, so it's not a big trip for Raymond to have taken, or Eugene. So for me, this area here is going to tell you what extreme addiction looks like. What happens when addiction becomes so powerful that somebody continues using despite devastating consequences. How easy is it for somebody living that life to become dependent upon another person for drugs, money, transportation, or shelter? And that's going to be where Raymond may play in. And perhaps most importantly for this case, what happens when somebody deliberately recognizes that vulnerability and knows how to use it? So that's what I kind of want us to think about as we watch each clip. So for the first clip, that's Buddy. Buddy's the one that's giving the tour to the person that runs the channel. So in this first section, I want you to listen carefully to Buddy describe growing up in Kensington. He talks about being a child and watching somebody inject drugs. He talks about people around him eventually becoming addicted, including his brother. He talks about losing members of his own family to complications associated with drugs. And what I want you to pay attention to isn't simply the addiction. Think about what happens when something that would shock most people gradually becomes part of somebody's everyday environment. So I'm going to watch. Now, guys, this is something that people see every day, something that they get used to. So this was my first look at Kensington.
We're good. Let's go.
These guys all here, fentanyl? Is that the story?
Yeah, fentanyl, yeah.
Jeez.
Fentanyl, trank. You know, in Kensington, there's always, back in the 70s, there was meth, and then it came in the 80s, cocaine, and then the heroin came in. I remember as a young kid, there was a guy shoot, it was like 1973 it was.
Yep.
There was a guy standing on the corner, and he wrapped his arm, took his belt off, wrapped his arm up, right? So we have a lot of young kids watching it. We're like, what's this guy doing? Well, the five of the guys who was watching him, they became heroin addicts. My brother was one of them, 12 years old. That's the average age, they say, where an addiction starts, 12 with heroin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he ultimately died. My brother ultimately died as a result of
wow.
Yeah. I lost 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, as a result of complications through drugs from this area. Check on her.
Okay.
You okay? You all right? Yo. We don't have any Narcan, do we?
Okay, is that person on their way out?
Well, they're just chilling right now. I mean, she's high, and I don't think she's on her way out, but she's definitely high.
So the question I had here, first question was, when severe addiction becomes part of the everyday environment, does that make vulnerability easier for other people to recognize and exploit? And is that part of what Raymond Horsch understood when he repeatedly went into Kensington looking for women? You see part of Buddy's routine? As he's walking with the YouTuber, I am sure he sees people like that, out like that all the time, and he just tries to make sure that they're okay, just to see if they're moving. Because he knows that they're fixed, he knows that they're high, so he just tries to tap on them to make sure that they're moving. And that's kind of probably, I wouldn't doubt if that's this gentleman's daily routine. And look how young she is. You know, that girl is definitely blinded by some addiction. Now you have Buddy, approaching her just to see if she's okay and keeps moving. But now imagine if that was Horsch, R.C. Horsch. How different would that approach be? He would look at her, and instead of trying to help her, he would see a vulnerability. He would exploit it. And then most likely he would probably promise her ways to keep supplying her to the point where if that road to the supply is easy, I'm going to follow that road because she's not thinking of anything else probably but that next fix. I think, watching this video last night and now revisiting it today, this is something that the Olney case, Eugene Horsch, R.C. Horsch, this is something that's being brought to our attention now that we really need to focus on because this is happening under our nose. These people, most of them are probably missing, maybe runaways, and I think Raymond Horsch, once they're missing and then forgotten, that's key, the missing and the forgotten. That second part matters. So once it gets to that point where they're forgotten, it's open range. I know that when the police are doing this investigation and they're looking at 600,000 images, 70,000 videos, they're going to be of people that have been missing probably for years, forgotten for years. And they're going to have to try to draw all these connections. And it's just probably going to be tedious, but in some cases, probably virtually impossible. I had someone that messaged me that was a former drug addict, knew this area very well, but also was out of South Jersey, I think. And she said when they have concerns, and they do go to the police, the concerns are minimized because of the lifestyle that they live. And, so obviously when you're addicted, the addiction just overrides everything. So whatever you could do to get that next fix. So obviously, a lot of them do turn to what they have, which is their bodies. And then they start selling their bodies so they can get that next fix. But then sadly, when you do have someone who lives this lifestyle and they come up to the police and they say, hey, I was sexually assaulted, they say sometimes the police don't take it serious enough. And most likely it's because they will probably in their mind maybe justify that this is the life that they chose. So hopefully by paying attention to what's happening in this case, now looking at the area in which Raymond and probably Eugene exploited, we get a little taste of the people that are going through this battle, this addiction. I mean, Buddy is just doing what he can. As you can see, just making sure no one is dead. And that's probably something he does, like, probably, I was just saying, probably every day. That's his part. But how do we get to before that, where Buddy doesn't have to walk around his own neighborhood checking on people to see if they're still alive, especially young females? Because Raymond saw this too. Raymond went around that neighborhood, and if he checked on them being alive, it was only because he wanted to use them. So the next clip I want to show you, let me just get to the timestamp. So bear with me. We're going to go to 4:20 to 7:35. So let me get the video back in. So I want you to watch everybody who isn't using drugs. Look at the families, look at the children, look at people simply trying to walk through their own neighborhood. They're moving towards McPherson Square, commonly referred to as Needle Park. But he talks about playing there when he was young, sledding there, running around, using the neighborhood freely. Then he explains what families deal with now. You're also going to hear about Kensington history as a work-class manufacturing community and how dramatically the neighborhood changed over time. That's why, yeah, it was like a textile community, I believe, from what I researched. Um, but now these are families right now that are trying to live a normal life. The scariest thing I have here is this is what the children are exposed to as the norm. So this is what they wake up to, and this is what they learn to navigate around. Now, granted, some people could grow up and want to make a difference, and this could be a great anchor to create that difference, but it takes a lot of courage to break from that routine. And sadly, when I say break from the routine, it's sometimes these families just, or the children growing up, accept this as this will be their fate. There's just no escaping it. And then, as I said, so you have people that could make this as a story, something positive, and do something different, or some people that just fall victim. All right, so let's show you this next part. We're going to go from 4:20 to 7:35.
They do ask, do they want to be, but if we're walking down the street, that's...
Yeah. Yeah, so what we're going to do, I'll take you down the street here, and we'll show you McPherson Square. They also named it Needle Park, which is heart-wrenching because it's really the only place in Kensington where you have an open space.
Look at this family just trying to navigate all this.
Yeah. So we got 5.5 acres of green space down there, but our kids can't use it.
Oh, buddy, I'm not gonna lie, this is quite heavy. I have like some little bit of adrenaline going, and that has not happened in a long time.
Yeah, you haven't seen nothing yet, my brother.
Really?
Nothing. This was inundated with addicts, and now what they're trying to do, they're doing this initiative where they're trying to clean up the streets in a sense, and
okay, so the police are coming in here and
yes,
making an attempt, but
yeah, come on, let's go over here.
this is not an easy one to turn around.
They have like 100 police cadets that they dedicated specifically to Kensington.
Is that helping much?
Well, I think, my man, how you doing, boss? You all right? Good. Well, their presence, I think, is definitely, you can see it, but we got to wait and see.
So it's a new thing.
Yeah, there has to be a plan in place.
So I just want to take a shot of this. Look at your library. This is beautiful. Hi, officers.
So this is fun. When it snowed, oh man, this was like Donny Park. I mean, we had all the rides, slide down there like unbelievable. Snowball fights, it was great. Now you can't do that because of all the needles and all, you know?
Yeah.
Over here, they designated for kids, so you have a lot of kids that come in. This kind of looks nice. I mean, it is nice when it's used. But if you look at the zip code we're in, there's over 30,000 people in our area, and I would say half of them are kids. Where are they? That's sad. There's a tight rein on them because you can't just run free. You just can't go like when I was a kid. You just can't ride your bike in the streets.
If
you just can't walk. You can't walk in the streets.
If you're a responsible parent, you're not letting your kid out here.
No, you're not. Are they open here? There you go. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, look at the architecture.
A beautiful place, isn't it?
Beautiful. So what was Kensington back in the day? Was it a working class neighborhood?
Listen, we would come in here, all my sisters would come in here, we would sit at the tables and see, people don't see this in Kensington. You know, they don't, you know, this is a beautiful, ton of history, you know.
So let's say 1930s.
Yes.
Working class neighborhood,
yes.
People working in Philly,
yes.
Or what were they doing?
Well, back in the 30s, it was historical factories. We were the manufacturing spot of the world. We produced rugs, shoes, hats, Stetson hats, overcoats, belts, you name it. I mean, every other block had a factory, and we had 100% employment. Everybody had a job. And obviously in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, where the manufacturing left, and then poverty came in, you know?
Okay, so
jobs left.
The jobs went away, the drugs came in.
The drugs came in eventually, yes.
That's going to go right into our next section. You know, so when I married my wife, we moved to Patterson, which is a neighborhood that is tough, and we had our family there for the very beginning. Now we're in a whole nother area, but we lived in a community that was trying its best to bring families in, but at the same time dealing with crime. And, you know, it breaks your heart to see a park that you know your kids would enjoy, but you just don't feel safe to bring them to the park, or festivals that the town is trying to put together, but then you feel concerned because um, the neighborhood, and even if the town starts to clean itself up, the reputation, people just don't want to take that risk. So, and then what also broke my heart is I remember seeing a new park going up, and then within a couple of days, just it being destroyed, claimed by different gangs, because it was in the middle of what looked like an area that was in dispute. So you just started having back and forth claims of that park, and it just destroyed the park. I remember just taking pictures and sending it to the municipality, and all they said was, "Listen, you could send it to you know, your the representative of your area, whatever section I was in. But it doesn't matter. You clean it up, and it's going to get destroyed again. So it's like you really can't put new things in until you do what you can to one, uh, you know, knock out the bad, which sometimes it's just not going to happen, and then on top of that, try to build that reputation back. So, second question here is, when addiction in the drug economy becomes powerful enough to change how an entire neighborhood functions, does the chaos also create an environment where vulnerable people can be approached, moved around, or disappear without attracting the kind of attention they would somewhere else? And could that have benefited someone like Raymond? You see, so that's the thing where, kind of talk about reputation. Kensington had a reputation, and that means that the people that went to this area connected to that reputation. So going missing is pretty much the routine. That's why when you look at some of these cases, the like I think Blair Tonzelli, you have someone that could have been missing around August of 2022, but wasn't officially reported missing, I think, until a friend of hers, David McCarty, decided to do it in February of 2023. So it's like when you have people that are connected to these areas, the lifestyle makes them vulnerable, because people will start making the assumption that, well, I'm sure they come back, they always do, and that kind of does make them a target for people like Raymond Horsch, or even in general people that are looking to do them harm. That's why they target that community, because they have a certain lifestyle which gives the predator some freedom, or at least some time. You have people that are used to disappearing, so when they finally do, no one's chasing after them immediately, especially if they connect them to areas like this. So I think Raymond knew that. Maybe even Eugene. They know that the lifestyle um, gives them an opportunity to exploit. So it's not even just about the drug addiction, but it's also about the fact that when they go missing all the time. Remember, Gabrielle's family and Maribel's family didn't even know of Raymond until recently. Until recently. So that means that, yes, they knew that, sometimes, unfortunately, due to the addiction, they would go missing, because the addiction would be driving who they are, but they probably didn't know enough about what feeds that addiction, or who they were going to, because that's probably who those that are addicted, they may even protect them, because that is their supplier. So the biggest concern is, if I get used to Raymond giving me things, even if he's doing these other things, he's still supplying me, I may not want to give him up, because I don't know where else to get my supply. So in the end, what about if he's giving me drugs just so I can photograph for him? Or I could be in a few videos. That's easier for me to do than to try to get money all the time. So that's an easy fix for me. So why am I going to go ahead and report him when that guarantees me my fix? And it's funny, because I wonder if that changes how they view Raymond. I wonder if their belief in themselves at that point, where even though they're being exploited, they kind of see Raymond as the nice guy who's helping them. Helping you do what, though? It's the mindset's unique, because the family that's helping them clean up, which is the harder route for them to take, become the enemy. But the person who continues to feed the addiction is the person they're connected to, the person that they're going to protect. So, and I think the constant feed of that supply is what gives them the need or want to, well, I say need, to protect them. All right, so let's get to this next section.
So, buddy, a guy like this, what's his story?
I don't know. We have to check him. He won't get up?
Oh, jeez.
Yo, pal. Yo, pal. Yo. Come on, my man. You got to get up, pal. Okay? Come on, pal.
It's from Trank.
You okay? You okay?
It like eats your flesh. You can see the wound. It's
Right.
Okay, come on, my man. Hey, look.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That's what the Trank does?
Yes, that's what the Trank does. Somebody died right there, so that's
Oh, yeah. So, buddy, from the outside, everyone would be like, why aren't these guys getting help?
Look, but here's the thing. There is plenty of opportunity. Like, Kensington right now is a tourist attraction for people to come and look and see people dying on the streets. And the truth of the matter is they don't have to die on the streets because there is help.
Guys, before I forgot to go over my little brief on this clip. That injury that you saw on the person who was trying to help, that's going to remind us a little bit about Blair and her injury. We discussed that in the very first video. So the next section immediately made me think about Blair Tonzelli. Again, you just saw somebody who appears to be severely impaired. You're also going to see a very serious wound. The people in the video associate that wound with Trank. Before we watch it, even though I forgot to go over it, so since we're watching it, I need to make an important distinction. We do not know that Blair's wound was caused by xylazine or Trank. That's never been publicly established, but we kind of inferred that. What Blair's friend did describe, that's David McCarty, was an enormous infected drug-related wound that required regular dressing changes and medication. So I'm not here to diagnose Blair, but we kind of put two and two together. That's what we thought the injury was. But again, if you could take another perspective here, just look at how medically vulnerable someone can become while addiction still continues to control their behavior. And again, that injury related to the drugs is extremely painful. It must be treated every day with antibiotics, I believe.
Okay, but the law works in the United States, from my understanding, you can't just remove someone like that. They have to agree to it. If they're sober enough to walk like that, there's nothing we can do.
I agree.
Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so it's like ACLU issue, I think, like personal freedom type.
Yeah.
You can't, and so that's the problem I'm seeing across the country. Is there is help? It looks like there isn't, but there is.
The problem. Listen, the problem is that there has to be a solution. Look, we don't know what happened with that man. He could have had a great upbringing, or maybe he got caught up. Maybe he broke his leg and got caught and was taking pain pills. And it happens all the time. I've seen actors, movie stars, sons and daughters come and get caught up because of an injury that they sustained while riding a bike up in the suburbs, and they wound up in the ghettos looking for heroin or looking for fentanyl to quell their pain. But that guy there, it takes 17 times. You get refused 17 times. That's the average number before somebody wants to reach out for help. Somebody wants to accept the help.
Because when you're in the drugs, you're not thinking help.
You're not thinking
You can't
help.
see outside of them.
No, you're not thinking help. You're just thinking for the next fix.
Yeah.
Because,
What's up, you guys? How's it going?
Addiction is a cruel taskmaster, brother.
Now think about something. Let me just get set up for the next part. Hold on. So I'm going to go to 12:15. So think about this. That's an interesting statistic. 17 times. Now, who's most likely to go ahead and keep pushing after 17 times? Persistence will. I mean, we're lucky if family and loved ones still continue to do that before they feel that they've exhausted all effort. So again, I mean, that's a good statistic to know because that gives us an expectation, which means that it should be expected that you're going to have to fight with these individuals, struggle, and they're going to resist, but eventually it gives you something to hold on to, that they're going to go through the struggle, but eventually they're going to turn around. So for those that are dealing with, loved ones who are addicted, expect that battle. 17 times, probably even more, but expect that battle. And that, you know, sometimes people will think, well, I can't get them to turn around. It must be me. It must be me. And it's not you. It's them. Because that's how powerful the addiction is. I mean, imagine knowing that this is your life. This is what you are living. And yet you're still going to find yourself doing drugs and in this area. Question here was, when addiction becomes powerful enough that somebody continues using while their own body is deteriorating, how much leverage can another person gain by controlling drugs, money, or shelter? And does that change how we should look at Raymond's relationship with someone as, even as vulnerable as Blair? You know, I don't know Blair personally. I know only what we've read and how we connected her to Raymond. But if you look at it in general, the need to take the drug, because it does become a need. I know some people like want versus need. Well, in their mind, it does become a need because the body is calling for it, especially if the body becomes conditioned to taking the drug at certain times in certain areas. You know, so the moment they go to a certain area, their body's ready to receive the drug. And I know even cases like this, when they're in Kensington, most likely the body is conditioned to say, okay, we're here. So this is what we want. This is what we usually get. So this also becomes a safe place for them to use drugs because their body is conditioned to use it here because it's ready to receive it. I'm not saying a safe place environmentally with the, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of dangerous people here, but for the body itself, because the body, I'm sure once the person who's addicted goes to this area, the body knows, okay, I'm going to get a little something, and it prepares to receive it. So imagine just Raymond Horsch walking around looking at these individuals and just having a little bit of something to give them a promise to come back. That if they come back with him, they'll get a little bit of this. So again, I think a tough part of this case, even though I think if he was giving him drugs, even though he passed, you know, if you continue to give drugs to someone who's addicted, and again, I'm not minimizing the accountability of their own choices, but you also have someone that could be vulnerable at that time. So I get it. I've grown up in my perspective a little bit too, is you're also taking advantage of vulnerability. So there's two levels of accountability here that's on two different scales. They're not on the same scale. So if I say, well, you're taking advantage of someone's vulnerability, it's like, well, they made the choice to take it. Okay, that's a whole different scale. I don't have time to try to equate a percentage of who's right or who's wrong, but rather you have your own scale and they have their own scale, and those things need to be addressed. You know, because I can go to the person who's making those choices and say, you know, you're vulnerable right now, and the choices you're making, it's just not best for the lifestyle that you need to live, the lifestyle that's more healthy. But at the end, I'm going to hold this person responsible for their choices because their choices are making them vulnerable. And that's where you have the predators, people like the Horsches and maybe Eugene. But the biggest thing that I would be curious, but I don't know if they'll be able to figure this out, is murder or overdoses, even though I'm going to have to equate them to the same because you're giving them drugs when they're vulnerable. So you know what the outcome of that's going to be. And most likely, if there's a lot of people that did go to the house, they did overdose, could he have used those oil drums to kind of start the process of getting rid of their bodies and evidence? So I am going to equate the two. Well, I only gave her drugs. She chose to take it, and she overdosed. Okay, but you knew she was vulnerable, and you gave her the drugs because that was your way to control that individual. And it's sad because Raymond's dead. So a big part of the story that will forever go unresolved is his level of accountability. So right now it's like, do we need Eugene to tell this story? But then again, the accountability goes to someone who's dead, who literally escaped without ever being held responsible. Not even for a day. Not even for a minute. All right, let's get to this next part. Oh, guys, I want to mention something before I play the next part of the video. I'm only about an hour and 53 minutes away from this area. I was thinking yesterday maybe it would be worth taking a trip, but then I found this video, and this video pretty much answers what I feel I needed to know outside of direct interaction. All right, let's play this video.
Me ammo, yeah. So I mean, it's better than stealing.
I agree. I agree.
Hey, my man. How you holding up, pal? You doing all right, bro? Yeah? Where you from?
Poconos.
Sorry, I keep on forgetting to give the breakdown, what I want us to see beforehand. So the next moment probably explains severe addiction better than anything I could tell you. You're going to see Buddy approach a relatively young man. He offers him help, not someday, not theoretically, help right now. And essentially the answer is not right now. I want you to remember this interaction whenever somebody asks, why doesn't an addicted person just accept help? Sometimes help is standing directly in front of them. So that's the key. I wanted people to, so let me rewind this back a little bit. I keep on forgetting to introduce the video. So let me just rewind it back a little bit because this is important.
Me ammo, yeah. So I mean, it's better than stealing.
I agree. I agree.
Hey, my man. How you holding up, pal? You doing all right, bro? Yeah? Where you from?
Poconos.
Poconos. What brings you to Kensington?
I've been up here for the last 15 years.
Yeah? If you need any help, you know where Rock Ministry is? Down the street? Yep, we're there for you, pal. Okay? We're there for you, man. All right? You're a young, healthy, good-looking young man.
You know he's not going to shake his hand. The knuckles are safer. You never know, sadly, what you can catch. So if you notice, he went to go shake his hand, which is a normal human interaction. And Buddy had to protect himself at that point and kind of do the knuckles. But this is someone that wanted that human interaction, shake the hand and connect. But at this point, Buddy had to protect himself. I thought that was interesting. I'll show you it again, but he knuckles him. He's not going to shake his hand. Watch.
No, you are. You still have, there's hope. Yeah. If you need any help, you know where Rock Ministry is? Down the street? Yep, we're there for you, pal. Okay? We're there for you, man. All right? You're a young, healthy, good-looking young man.
So far.
No, you are. You still have, there's hope. There's hope in you, man. You just have to accept it. You want to get help?
Not right this second.
No? But you know what's available?
Yeah.
In 10 minutes, we can have you in a bed. 10 minutes. Just remember the Rock. Right down the street. You know where we're at. Okay?
I remember.
All right, my man.
Thank you very much.
All right, pal.
Take care.
You all right, pal? My man? You okay?
He's all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy, I've seen a lot in the world. I've been to Karachi, Pakistan. That's a pretty hard-hitting city. I've been to the hood there.
Yeah.
But I've never felt a roughness like this.
Yeah.
It's a different...
Who? Which one?
How you doing, boss?
He got it going, pads and stuff like that. He got operated. They fucked him up now, man.
Does he want to go to the hospital? You don't want to go to the hospital? That's when he get infected, Miguel. This guy's intestines hang out. Literally, his intestines are hanging out.
Oh, man. He doesn't want help?
He don't want help. But his intestines are hanging out.
So the ambulance comes in for that, or what?
Yeah, they'll come in. Yeah, they come in. You call 911 in 4 minutes, you got them.
So these EMS workers must be so burnt out, huh?
Well,
Doing this every day?
every day. And this is nothing today.
What do you mean?
This is not, this is nothing. This is empty.
just a normal
It's
day.
empty. No, this is empty today. Am I right, Kev? This is nothing.
It's nothing.
Yo, look, see? Now, this is America. We're in the United States of America. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. And people just walk right by them.
Well, it's just
Look at his head. Come on. Hey, buddy. Yo. Come on, my man, get up, okay? Please. Get yourself up. You need some help, my man?
No, I'm good, bro.
All right.
So again, this is routine for Buddy. Let me get to the next section I want to show you guys before I address this section. So again, this is routine. And you can see how people don't want to accept the help. So for anybody that's passing judgment like, oh, that was my child and I would have done this or done that, I mean, it goes to show you how not easily that is to accomplish, not unless you have that person willing. And I'll be honest with you, from my experience from talking to individuals that have dealt with drug addiction, especially in my world of corrections, they settle into the addiction to the point where they feel hopeless, and hopeless feeds the addiction. So as he told the guy, you're a good-looking man, you're healthy, come on, go get some help. And he plays into it, but he doesn't want help because the addiction is where he wants. That's what he wants. So they learn to accept the fact that this will be their life. Again, he's been there for 15 years, he said, I believe. So there's a level of hopelessness. So sometimes you have to remind them of what they're worth, but they also have to believe that they're worth that. You know, it's not as simple as saying, hey, you're better than that, you know, look at you. It's like, okay, but on the surface, they'll kind of give you a little something because they believe that's a expectation, but that doesn't mean they believe in their own self-worth. You know, that's a whole shift. And some of them just may play the card on the surface, but in the end, they're going to go back and shoot up, and then you could try again to say, come on, man, you're better, but they don't believe it. That's why somewhere along the line, when you deal with addicts, it's not just about, you know, getting them away from what they're addicted to, but reminding them and then keep on pushing until you can change their belief in themselves. And that's the harder part. I think that's where you can maintain the help you're providing, is by knowing that you can shift their belief from being hopeless to, I am better than this. I am worth more than this. Because that's going to be how they are able to find their own strength to deal with the power of an addiction. So again, if somebody can reject help while their life is visibly falling apart, are they really negotiating from an equal position when another person comes along offering the exact thing their addiction is demanding? And what might that tell us about the power Raymond could have held over some of these women? So, in my opinion, I kind of touched on it, but if you see Buddy going around and Buddy's offering help, and he's trying to offer help through, something that is available in the moment. It's a direction with a destination. So the help is specific. That's extremely important. He didn't go there and say, hey, you need to find help. There's areas out there that help. He said, you got to go to something ministries, rock ministry, or whatever. You got to go to this ministry. And they knew where it was. So now you're giving the person a specific direction, which 9 times out of 10 would turn somebody around. Now they know where to go to get the help, as opposed to having to find it itself, having to find it themselves. They were given a specific direction. But sadly, when you have the leverage of an addiction, the craving. So Raymond was able to kind of push on the, I'm not going to say the unconscious, but the drive that is now a crave. So again, people are trying to offer them help. That's harder to work through than the person that's offering them to feed the addiction in the guise of help. So here I am trying to help you get through the long struggle that it's going to take so you could turn your life around. So this is not anything that you're going to feel immediately, but you will. But we have to go through this struggle first. So it's not something that's going to give them that immediate lift right away, but it will be impactful. But it just takes time. But these individuals here, they're impulsive. They want that next fix. They don't care about the troubles that they're going to face later on. They're used to that. I just want to get through and get my next fix. The only thing I'm concerned about is how I'm going to get my next drug, my next fix. And he offers them that. And in their mind, that's a bastardized version of help. So I think Raymond had the leverage of an immediate fix. And that gave him control, where people would come up, probably those same women, and offer long-term help. But I'm not looking for anything in the future. I need something to feel good right now, because in their mind, feeling good is really not about how you think, but the high a drug can give you. So it's how they view the help that they're receiving. So technically, in their mind, Raymond is offering them help, but it's obviously leveraging control of the vulnerable. So I want you to, this is about the child, the people that are living around the epidemic. So the next section changes the perspective. We're no longer just looking at somebody using drugs. We're going to see a young child living around this environment, and suddenly you begin thinking about everyone else affected by addiction: children, parents, grandparents, neighbors, businesses, entire families. And while you're watching, think about how easily people themselves can disappear behind labels: addicts, homeless, drug users, sex workers. Sometimes we hear a label and stop seeing the human being underneath it. And that's the key here, guys. When we're watching this case unfold, we have to realize that a lot of people are saying, well, they're either just drug users or sex workers, and no, they're human beings. So remember their names: Gabrielle, Blair, Amy, Maribel. You know, you have to humanize them and not define them from their addiction. And sometimes that's harder to do, but that's what needs to be done, because if you have to draw a human connection to this suffering, so you're able to go ahead and create the change that's needed, and actually listen to the person and not pass judgment that they're an addict. Because if we are not able to do that, then you'll have more Raymond Horsches of the world, more Eugene Horsches, if depending on his connection. So again, these people may not have the voices of the community, but these may be the people that are most in need of it.
Look at the picture. Get a picture of that.
Who's this kid here?
I don't know. Wow, look at this. What a picture that is. Hello. How you doing? How you holding up?
All right.
You okay?
Better.
Yeah?
Tired.
You tired? Yeah? Who's this?
This is a lady. She walked down there.
And?
Me to watch it, so I said she'll stay right here.
Where's, she just walked down there? Wait, is it your mom? Yeah? What is your name? Caden? Where did your mom go?
Just went into the grown-up store.
She went into the grown-up store? How long ago did she go?
I wonder what grown-up store means. Is that how she tells her child, or whoever this kid is to her, that, you know, that's probably when she gets her fix? Don't think the children don't know either, by the way. So she may think she's hiding it by saying, I'm going to go to a grown-up store. So that's the store you can't go in. But then the kids, they know. See when you come out, how you act, what you're doing. So kids know. So she may think that she's not, you know, protecting him from the truth by saying grown-up store, but I'll guarantee you that kid knows what she gets in the grown-up store.
2-3 months.
So she just left her here?
Yeah, I said I would watch
Are you kidding me? Is this your mom coming now?
it. Can't want to take it.
Yeah. Is this your daughter, ma'am?
It is. I don't like to take her to the store.
You what?
I don't like to take her to the store.
Yeah. Yeah, but did you know, you didn't even know him?
No, I know him. We know each other.
Oh, she know,
Yeah,
she, oh, you know, okay.
Yeah, no, I would never
Okay.
do that. Yeah.
How old is your daughter?
She's gonna be 6 next month.
Do you live around here?
I do.
You do?
Well, I live on Gerard, but I come here for cigarettes.
You've heard of the Rock Ministries?
I have. I want
You
to
have.
work for you.
You want to work for me?
Yeah. I heard that you do cleanups.
We do, but let me ask you something. We have an amazing program for your daughter. It would be
Really?
great for her to get over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need something for her to do.
Yeah, please,
Yes.
please.
We're from Boston.
Oh, you're from Boston?
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
I went back and forth.
Okay.
I first came to Philly last year.
Right.
Ended up homeless in Jersey because the hotels were cheaper. With my truck got stolen, with my driver's license, birth certificate, social security cards. Just been trying to get that stuff back.
We can help you with all that. With all that. So if you go into our Chaplain building,
Okay.
like it's right on the, ask for the
I noticed
Chaplain.
you guys have like 3 different.
We have quite, yeah, but if you go into the chat, we can help you.
All right, guys.
She could be playing him a little bit too because obviously she has a child. God knows if the addiction supersedes her logical thinking and that child becomes something marketable. I'm sorry, guys. I also have to show that side too. I would have. I'm assuming maybe he did because there's an edit here, so maybe they walked her over because she could just be selling a bridge too because she knows, she could be in some shit a little bit. I think she's just trying to show that she's very interested in getting the help, but I would have definitely walked her over there, which they may have done. I don't know, but let me get to the next part. So 2430. Hold on. All right, that will get us to the next part, but let me see what the question is here. Do we become less alarmed when certain people disappear because addiction? Let me just make sure that's the right part. Yeah, because addiction is unstable. Do we become less alarmed when certain people disappear because addiction or an unstable lifestyle has already caused society to view them differently? And if that's true, wouldn't somebody looking to exploit vulnerable women recognize that too? Well, that's sort of what this whole story was about. We kind of touched on this on the beginning, but they're living a lifestyle in which there's an expectation. So sadly, because of the lifestyle, people just expect this to happen. So when there is a concern, the concern gets absorbed in the expectation. So I do believe that there's not as much urgency that goes into this as it should be. As you can tell, I mean, R.C. Horsch and what they've done at that house, eventually what's going to probably come up eventually will let you know that this was an open field day for them. There probably was no urgent response when it comes to people that are missing that have a reputation of being in these areas. So that's, I think, is definitely what fuels someone to go ahead and find this market. Again, the chance of getting caught, it's just not as risky for them. People that commit crimes technically always look at the risk. And in this case here, the risk is minimal because of, one, the lifestyle that they're in, which exposes them, gives leverage to Horsch, but also the expectation of that lifestyle. And that usually relates to any environment that would be pushing forward to find that individual. I mean, remember, some of the families didn't even know about Raymond Horsch. The only family that may have knew was maybe Amy McHale because they were married. And even in one of the messages, she said Ray. So there was a familiarity that maybe her daughter and her mother knew of him. But again, they were married. These other, Gabrielle and Maribel, these were just chance interactions. And probably they protected those interactions because they supplied him. And they probably, as I said, they probably knew that if they would put his name out there, the family would probably do what they can to disconnect that supply line, and they're not going to want that. So they don't tell them, and eventually they disappear. All right, so I want to talk about compassion here. So this is a bit controversial. You're going to hear opinions about public drug use, syringe programs, harm reduction, policing, and whether certain policies intended to protect people may also leave them living in the same dangerous circumstances. I'm not presenting every statement made in this documentary as established fact. There are legitimate arguments on different sides of this debate, but I don't want us getting lost in politics. Just watch the people, look at the physical condition they're in, look at the environment they're still living in, and ask yourself, simply keeping somebody alive is enough if nothing else changes. So again, and ask yourself whether simply keeping somebody alive is enough if nothing else changes. So we're going to go, this is going to be about 5 minutes, this part of the video.
Behind, in houses, they just can't come out and enjoy their life. They can't because they're locked behind in the house because of the post-traumatic stress disorder they've developed because of what they've seen over the years. It's horrible, Peter. Yo, who? Yo, pal. You okay? Okay, come on, sit up. Please, sit up, okay? See his arm? See your arm?
Yeah,
The
the
old
flies,
flies.
are taking over and the ants. So policies that are thought of as humane are very inhumane, I would say. That's not okay. The guy's got pus coming out of his arm and flies over him.
Obviously.
Yeah, but who thinks that is an okay policy?
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not freedom.
No. It's bondage. It's a good point.
It's bondage.
I think they are, yeah. I think it's winding down, though. Yeah.
Yeah, if someone is in agreement with these policies, please explain how that is compassion. Seeing someone passed out with flies on their wounds and letting them rot on the streets. I just don't. I'm sorry, you're used to this. You're here all the time.
Yeah.
It almost infuriates me. Like we have policies that allow that to happen.
Yeah.
We are in America.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. Like I haven't seen it like this anywhere in the world. I've been to 85 countries.
Well,
I've seen drug scenes, but not like here.
Yeah, this is people. Look at people just poop in the streets. You can smell, Peter. You got to hold your breath now, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now listen, just think about your kid. Think about your kid having to walk down these streets. It's not right to them. And you know what's amazing? Like I remember HBO Larry Merchant did a little interview on me. He said to me, "So he says you're a fighting pastor, right?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't want to fight George Foreman, you know." I said, "But I'll tell you what, I changed my mind. I'll fight George Foreman for the kids." Yes, because the kids, it's heart wrenching. That's what is heart wrenching to me, is the kids.
I want to tell you the policies that they're talking about. I think I may have showed you a little further than I intended to. So there's the harm reduction policy. So it's organizations such as Prevention Point provide sterile syringes, naloxone, wound care, and connections to treatment. The philosophy is essentially keep someone alive and reduce HIV, hepatitis, overdose, and infections, even if they are not ready to stop using drugs. Philadelphia itself describes syringe service programs as a harm reduction strategy. The people in the video are questioning whether that approach can unintentionally make continued street addiction easier. That's an opinion worth discussing, but it isn't the stated purpose of the policy. So, again, I'm kind of familiar with this because, again, when you have an addiction, it's fueled by just the addiction, the crave. So, people may share needles. Again, it's because you can't stop the addiction. That's harder work. So what they do is they try to provide them with needles. So at least if they're going to use, because that's harder to approach and solve, at least it's done in a clean manner. And I don't know how to look at that either because I understand both approaches. I do. An addiction, they're tough to battle. People, they're going to go back and forth. I mean, you really can't trust someone saying they're not going to use anymore, and then they eventually go back to use because the craving is so strong. So what they do is they kind of have this fail-safe, saying, well, we have also a health epidemic happening here. How do we address both at the same time? And the harder concern right now is addressing the addiction. So do we apply them with clean needles or things to eliminate the spread of HIV, hepatitis? And unfortunately, when they do that in the community, instead of it, it's not going to deter, it enables them. So they're trying to do two approaches at once. So I want people to understand this is not a simple black and white solution here. So again, it's a very it's a tough debate. This is a tough one because again, I want to stop the drug use, but unfortunately that's harder because that's not up to us to resolve. That's up to the individual. And just as the guy said, 17 times they're going to resist and they don't want help, even if you direct them specifically to help. So there's an exhausted effort there. So now at that point, what's the other problems that happens with use is the spread of sicknesses. Well, how do we address that? Why we try to solve that? So they come up with this idea, which I think is an idea built out of desperation. It's not meant to be the perfect solution, because the perfect solution involves an outcome that they can't control. But at that point, the priority shifts from them to the drugs, to the sicknesses, hepatitis and HIV. So they're trying to solve that. So they introduce this idea that is based on good intent, but obviously when you introduce it into a world that like this, it's going to get manipulated. So I want to be careful here, because I understand their reasoning behind it. And I don't want to bastardize that choice, because I can't even think of another choice. I remember in certain prisons, there was, there's always going to be drug use, and there's also unprotected sex, especially in the women's facilities. So what they did was they knew unprotected sex was going to happen, something that's harder to control because it happens behind closed doors. Remember that. It happens behind closed doors. So they were teaching the inmates how to have sex in a safe manner. But it wasn't because they agreed with it. It's because they didn't know what else to do, because women were coming in and leaving with hepatitis and all these other different diseases. So they taught women how to have safe sex, and then people actually thought that, or the inmates actually thought, oh, it's okay, we can have sex. And that wasn't what it was about. Because in the process of them trying to teach them, they were also trying to discourage it. But they knew the concern was out of their control. So right now they're just putting things into it to try to slow that down. So my biggest thing is, I understand their intent, because the priority has now shifted from the drug user to, you know what, I just got to worry now about the spread of hepatitis and AIDS and other diseases. It's just when you're doing that intent in this world, they're going to take it as they can continue to use. So I don't have a solution for this. I think it's definitely, there's got to be something, but I don't want to bastardize that intent, because it's an intent made out of desperation, where priority shift from the drug users, like, well, I can't address this, because ultimately if we address the drug use, then it would automatically eliminate those diseases. But that outcome is not on us, that outcome's on them. And as you could see, the struggle to do that. So now I have to try something else we can put into the mix, but unfortunately it encourages drug use. But is there a chance that while we're doing that, because I'm sure they thought of that, does it lessen AIDS, hepatitis, and maybe that's the stat you need to look at? But that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You have historically limited enforcement of low-level drug offenses in Kensington. So for years, Philadelphia often did not aggressively arrest people merely for public drug possession or paraphernalia in Kensington. By early 2024, arrests for paraphernalia have been extremely uncommon, and open drug use had often gone unenforced. Mayor Sherrell Parker deliberately began reversing that approach, saying the same laws enforced elsewhere in Philadelphia should also be enforced in Kensington. So obviously there's an agreement there, but the sad thing is you're also giving them ways to get it. So again, now you have one side that's looking to help and aid this community, and then you got the other side that sees it as a threat and they want to do immediate accountability. Again, I even see this in the prison world. Safety and security. With automatic impulsive actions to provide a safe environment, but then you have to look at long term and what that does for the individual. I mean, we can hold them accountable, we can punish them, but does that really change them? So there's an effort to balance both worlds. So somewhere along the line, there is a partnership between accountability and rehabilitation. I think somewhere along the line that gets lost, because the people that are responsible for holding each side on a spectrum, I don't want to say they're clearly on opposite ends, but I guess somewhere along the line it could be seen that way. They have to merge in the middle, and that's where you have to have everybody on the same page in how this will be approached, because ultimately I think in order to really create change, you have to deal with the user ultimately, and try to work with them so they're better with the choices they make. And again, because we can't control their choices, sometimes the measures is, well, if we can't control it in the long term, how do we stop it now? And eventually that it just doesn't do nothing, it just delays. Then you got the right of adults to refuse treatment, so that relates more to the ACLU. That's what he mentioned earlier. when Peter says essentially you can't just take somebody away because they don't want treatment, that broadly correct. That's broadly correct, but calling it an ACLU policy is misleading. There isn't one ACLU rule causing this. It comes from constitutional liberty, medical consent law, and Pennsylvania commitment standards. Drug dependence by itself is not enough under Pennsylvania Mental Health Procedures Act to involuntarily commit someone as mentally ill. Generally, there must also be qualifying mental illness and the statutory danger criteria. So I know addiction it does affect someone's mental health, but I guess the biggest concern is if you start labeling that, will you have a flood of responsibility pushing over towards an already overwhelmed area of our health, which is mental health. I don't think we have a lot of people that actually provide what is needed. So now if you introduce addiction and really push that we really need to make this a mental health concern, they may not have the resources to handle that. But I think that is where the direction eventually should head. I think if you could treat this as a mental health concern, knowing that addiction is related to some level of mental health concern, that has to be addressed. Again, that's the long-term solution. How do you do it? Voluntary housing and treatment during encampment clearing. So when Philadelphia cleared the Kensington Avenue encampment in May of 2024, people were repeatedly offered housing, medical care, and treatment, but the city explicitly said acceptance was voluntary. 59 people accepted housing or other services during that process, and no one was arrested merely for being in the encampment during the clearing, because you can't force them to accept. And police assisted diversion instead of automatically prosecuting low-level users. Even as enforcement increased, Philadelphia could divert people arrested for offenses such as drug possession into services rather than putting them through a traditional criminal prosecution. In 2024, the Parker administration plan specifically combined increased enforcement with diversion and treatment. I want to mention that because you see that also in the jails lately too. They're treating possession that leads to distribution, so the amount someone has, differently than a possession for personal use. So there is a level of accountability if you have possession that leads to distribution. So I think there's a big safety concern with that, because we do have a population that could be addicted, and now you're playing on that vulnerability, no different than Raymond Horsch or maybe Eugene Horsch. So they need to be held at a different level of accountability. But then you get people that could overdose, or people that you know that they're personally using. The best answer may not be sending them to lock, where they can now overdose, because sadly drugs are always going to find their way to an addict. It's funny how innovative they can be. It's like no matter where you put them, give them a few moments and they'll find a way to get stuff. It's just, sometimes these biggest centers for people that you treat drug addictions to, they're usually overloaded with drugs coming in, because addicts know how to get drugs. It is what it is. So you want to offer the alternative. So basically, hey, before we punish this person, looks like he had an overdose, looks like he's a user, can we offer an alternative? Can we offer some level of drug treatment? Can we offer something before putting him in the hole becomes the only option? And at this point, can we find the supplier? Because that's the biggest threat. That's the person we want out. So I think that even the prison system's looking at things differently, almost similar to what they're doing is, again, what happens on the street happens also in the prison and jails is, hey, let's be careful before we punish the drug users, because then they're overdosing in our prisons, and they really should be getting treatment. And again, now you have the accountability side looking at that. That's going to be a concern that's outside their control. So how do we get them help so they can control it? And I think the prison and jails are also starting to recognize this. So eventually it may bleed into mental health, because we're seeing it. All right, let me continue playing this.
So there's Kensington Avenue down there. You'll see it's a pretty crazy area as we get closer.
So a lot of gun violence right now.
Wow, it's amazing you said that. So the New York Times did a story, and they did it all over the country, and there was 63 homicides in a 2-block radius in 5 years.
In 5
4
years.
years, 4 years. And you know where it was?
Here.
Kensington. And then you know where the blocks are? See where G Street is right here?
Yeah.
From G Street on down, within a 2-block radius each way.
This couple.
This was all packed people. This was all an encampment. You can't have tents anymore now. As soon as you put a tent up, they shut you
So
down.
where do these people sleep?
On the streets, under the bridge. See the barriers?
Yeah.
So they were all tents, and now the police have put up the barriers.
So if this wasn't an open drug area, do you think that'd be a start at least? Like, do you need to make it illegal first so you can't do this on the street?
Illegal?
Illegal,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
So you
that's
need to
one
make
of
it
them.
illegal first.
Yeah, that's one of them.
So why have we
Drug
not done
paraphernalia, I think that's another thing. Last year, I believe it was 10 million needles they gave out.
Who's giving out the needles and everything?
There's a place down here that's called Prevention Point. I think they have a contract with the city or with the state or something like that, but I don't think they're.
Prevention Point.
Yeah,
Can we walk in there?
They won't let you film.
no, they won't let you.
They won't let you film
No,
anything.
I
no.
was like, you can't film.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there are absolutely no cameras, no film.
yeah, yeah.
Why
And
is-
they, and
why
they,
is- why no
they
transparency?
wanted, what was that legal injection sites, and that's what safe injection sites, and that's where it was going to be at, right there. What happened?
This guy's shooting up into one of the sewers on his arm back.
So why no?
Oh, yeah, jeez.
So why no transparency
I don't know.
if that's city money?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. Well, I think what they did was they gave the needles out. Now, listen, let me say this. They feel as though they're doing right because their whole
I mean,
theory.
everyone always feels like
No,
they're
their
doing right.
whole theory is this: to stop the AIDS. Remember when the AIDS epidemic came around, where they were giving out, everybody was using one another's needles. So they feel as though that helps that population where you don't get AIDS. That's what they're saying. You know what I mean? I don't have the
Yeah, but
information one way or the other.
if it enables this,
That's the problem. That's
so
the problem.
why wouldn't the goal at their organization to be getting people off drugs?
Well, that's where the solution comes in.
Yeah, but that's an outcome that is really not control. So the only thing here is I don't think it's that simple. That's why, when you make a decision to fuel an addiction, because that's ultimately what I'm sure they're aware they would be doing, it's because there's some desperate act that there's no other solution, because the efforts on our end, the outcomes on theirs. So I don't want to judge this method because I don't know what the solution would be. Yeah, we're going to tossing them all in jails, but eventually they get released. They go back to addiction together. They go back to the addiction. So I think here this part is a lot more complicated.
And you're so diplomatic, and I understand you got to be, because
No, I don't want to be
this
diplomatic.
This is your wheelhouse.
I don't want to be diplomatic.
No, but you don't want to put anyone under the bus, and I understand why. You live here, and you have an amazing mission.
No, I think that when everybody comes down here, they want to try what they think works. I personally know it works.
What you're doing works,
100%.
and we're going to see it. But just giving out needles and safe injection sites isn't going to fix the
I don't
place.
agree with that. No, I don't agree with it.
See, I think the biggest concern here, and I'll tell you why, because again, this is not I'm respecting its complexity. Let me get to the next part. 4430. By the way, this is as I said, this is what Raymond and Eugene did. This is, well, I don't know so much about Eugene, but definitely Raymond. This is the areas they exploited. We're taking kind of a understanding of what they did, the neighborhoods they walked through. But I want to mention something. So there's no cut and dry answer to this. There's not. Again, the plan is built on desperation because I can't control the addict. So their biggest concern is, maybe contain it a little bit. AIDS, hepatitis, they don't want that shit spreading out. So maybe there's an effort to contain. I don't think it's a perfect solution. I don't think you're dealing. So here's the thing: you're dealing with a problem that, in my mind, is hard to resolve. So some people, instead of making a decision, and instead of moving forward in an effort to slow things down, they freeze. They just freeze. They just don't want to make things worse because they look at the consequences. I'll guarantee you the consequences here were the efforts to enable. So they freeze. But the problem is, it doesn't stop the problem. These are complex problems, not difficult problems. These are complex that are fluid. which means you have to commit to something to move forward. This is a moment where no decision could be worse than making a decision. So I don't think I'm in a position to judge what they've done. I'm not even in a position to agree. Do I see some alignment to it? Maybe because I understand what they're trying to accomplish, which ultimately is hepatitis, AIDS. They don't want that shit spreading. So now it's like I can't trust in these efforts here because they're not taking help. They're not doing this. Well, what do we do now? And now the pressure becomes for some level of action, because now, granted, if they didn't commit to something, we're allowing the neighborhood to go to shit. So what's the best way to do it? What's the best way to address it that addresses people's personal choices? Because that's the one thing that's out of our control. And it's like cleaning up the method. And the reason why, again, as I said, I remember going through this with females, where it's like you're not enabling it, but unfortunately that's how they take it. But if not, you're going to be spreading diseases rampantly, which has a greater impact in the long run. So I just think there's no perfect decision here, because you're dealing with an imperfect situation that truly involves the individual having to make the right choice, which is what you cannot control. So I don't want to judge people on an effort that is going to an outcome that they can't control. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to get at. So I know some people may see the controversy in this, and I get it 100%. But if you look at all the other things that have passed, they don't want to accept help. You can't force them. All these other things. I mean, what happens at that point? Out of desperation, we have to commit to something. All right, so what recovery actually requires? So now we're going to see another side of Kensington recovery, because I don't want this discussion to suggest that addiction is hopeless. It isn't. People recover, people rebuild their lives. In this section, you're going to hear somebody discuss addiction, crime, prison, family, faith, accountability, and eventually rebuilding his life. What I want you to notice is how much had to change beyond simply stopping the drugs. I'll give you the question here that we'll try to answer. If recovery requires rebuilding, housing, relationships, structure, purpose, and accountability, does that help us understand why someone offering drugs, money, and a place to stay can become enormously important to a vulnerable person, even when that relationship itself may be exploitive? Well, that's the thing. If you offer someone help, and as you provide them with direction, but their biggest concern is having to go through withdrawal, the craving, the drugs, then them not moving towards that help, so they know in the long run, I could get better housing, I could build relationships with my family. I mean, they're in survival mode, but they don't want to go through this unknown. They don't want to kill the addiction. Well, it becomes harder because the greater pool is that addiction. But like for someone like Raymond, if he was doing this, he could offer all this and feed the addiction. How do you battle against that? Because even with loved ones like, no, we want you here, we want to help you, but you can't bring that shit into the house. So that's what stops them. That's the main crave. I don't want you using it in my house. That's not going to happen, and that's what stops them, because they want that feel. They don't want to go through that withdrawal, because it's horrible from what I heard. And they don't even want to end the addiction. So I can give you all this, but you can't take that. But that's the most important drive. So then you get Raymond, who comes in and says, I can give you all this and I'll give you the drugs. Okay. Because they're operating in survival mode, and that drug fulfills them, so he gives them both. He gives them what they need to survive, and he gives them the drug. How do you compete against that?
Here.
Well, I think, listen,
because results are walking down the street and not seeing what we saw.
Oh yeah, I mean that's ultimately. Listen, I can't tell you the time, how long it's going to take, but I know this: with the plan in action, and we're all part of that plan, then you got a solution. But if you keep talking about the problem, this, that, and another thing, and this and that, you're just talking about it. Implement things, but you got to have a physical place.
That's kind of what we just discussed. The biggest concern here is not making a decision because, again, it's a complex problem. It will grow in its complexity. So eventually it gets to a point where, well, this isn't working, but we still have to fuel a decision, and the decision's made out of desperation. I don't think it's a perfect decision, but what else do you have? You're trying to implement something where the effort is out of your control. And I think a lot of times people pass judgment automatically thinking, well, if I do this, if I do A, that person's going to do B. We clearly see that they won't do B. So then you have to shift the plan. What's the concern you want to address? I want to concern the sickness. That's my biggest concern. Hepatitis, AIDS. I don't want that shit spreading. Okay, well, I can't expect this side to fix it, but maybe we could address it this way. So now it doesn't become so much how I'm trying to build balance amongst both, but I'm putting more pressure on this side. And sadly, you're not making a perfect decision, but you're going to be judged if you don't make a decision.
Take somebody.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a physical place, then how's it going to work?
And I feel,
You know?
I don't know how it works with the law, but I think forcing rehab is needed in some of these situations. Because asking someone that's
I want to say something about forcing rehab that doesn't work. The person truly has to want to change. So that may give you something immediate, but eventually later on, I mean, maybe in some cases, someone will get a wake-up call by putting back. I don't think it works in the long term. I really don't. I think there has to be a want, something that encourages them to change. I mean, I've seen some mothers who, once they have children, they sober up, and I've seen some mothers that don't. You know, but there has to be something that motivates them that's greater than the urge. You know, and they have to recognize that. And I've seen people that are just, they find that motivation that's greater than the urge, that reason to live. And sometimes it comes with that responsibility over another. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. And that motivates them in. But to force them in and not recognizing a motivation that they're willing to sacrifice, the motivation that will help them sacrifice the need or the want to use drugs, what are you working on? You know, so I get it. It may be needed, but that's kind of more towards push the accountability side. Like, if I was to push some level of forced addiction help, whatever it is, it's going to come in partnership with accountability. Accountability, they're going to be partnered together. So that's something where I think would only work well if you're going to be harsher on crimes and then push them in from that level. But I don't think that's been the answer either, because as you can see, that hasn't stopped anything. Because at one point we were harsh on crimes like this, and it didn't work. So all it does is kind of delay the inevitable. So I don't. Again, if you want to see things on either end of a spectrum and think that the answers are that simple, they're not, because you're dealing with human behavior. You're dealing with choices that are outside of your control to mandate and push. It's on their control to accept. So you have to try to find a way to work at their level, which is complicated. As you could say, 17 times you're going to be resisted. Well, who has the persistence and will to keep trying that 17 times? You know, so I this part, a little disagreement, but I do like the overall presentation of what he did here. It opened us up to views that we wouldn't normally see. But I don't think the solution is black and white. I like the fact that he was showing it, but now when you're trying to solve it, you don't want to minimize the complications that it is or how complex it is and think that the solutions are that easy, because if they were that easy, they already be thought of. That's why I kind of get to it. Sometimes when people are removed or not directly involved, they think the answers are that simple, and they're not. And I think when they made this effort to provide the syringes, again, that you clearly see that's a plan of desperation. That's not going to be something that you settle into at the very beginning. I will guarantee you that was at the back end of an exhausted effort, failures, where this became the possibility, because their agenda going in was always not so much about the user, but what diseases are spreading.
Is pussing, like, get off the drugs, it's not going to work.
Listen, you said it. You have to. You saw how many people. That was just a handful. There's dozens and dozens of those examples that you saw laying all over Kensington.
Yeah.
Would you rather? That's somebody's mother.
Yeah.
That's someone's father, someone's daughter, someone's son. It's a family member, bro. I mean, there's got to be some stringent rules that have to be put in place, and then they have to respect it. They have to respect it.
Hey, Joe. How are you, bro? Good to see you. You all right?
How long you been here, David?
I got here July 28th, 2021.
You're from Kensington?
From South Philly. I was in prison for 3 years before I came here. And what got me into prison was my addiction. I was addicted to Percocets. And I wasn't the type of person to sit in sorrow and wait for something to happen.
Okay.
I would try to go make it happen on my own strength. So instead of sitting there waiting for a solution, I went out and found my own solution, and that was burglarizing houses. And when I came to the Rock, my dad picked me up from prison, and 2 weeks later, that's when I gave my life to the Lord. There's an event going on called Rock the Block. And at the event, we clear the whole street out. There's not a needle on the ground. There's not a gunshot in sight. And a kid can just come out here and be a kid. And, we got the moon bounces going on. And it was just a beautiful day in Kensington. And in the middle of it, Buddy did an altar call. He said, if there's anyone here that wants to surrender their life and give their life to Jesus, let's do it today. And it was just like a wave of silence came over. And I could just feel the Lord speak to my heart. My dad had his granddaughter, my niece, on his shoulders, and he just looked at me and he was like, yup. And I just knew. And I shot to the ring, and I went to the ring, and I'm crying, and I just gave my life to the Lord. And then I didn't notice it at the time. But when I look back, what happened was the Lord, I was the first one to enter the ring. But the effect of that, I look back now, and after that, there was like 15 to 20 young kids that came into the ring after that. So as time went on, I started to pick up what God was putting down. Like, I'm going to use your old life, David, that you were stark in darkness for, and I'm going to use that wasted life, and I'm going to use it for good. Because these kids in Kensington need to see what it looks like to a kid that was addicted, robbing houses, mom and dad. Mom was a smoker, dad was a doper. Now they both live for Jesus. I'm going to use your life, David, to show these kids what it's like to not be a product of your environment, but to be a product of the gospel. And that's what he did in my life, and that's what he's continuing to do. Me and my wife got married. We used to live in sin. We've been together 9 years. And she thank you so much. We got married October 7th of last year. But it didn't just happen like that. Like, when I came home, she put money on my books every day. She bailed me out. One time she always made sure when I came home from jail that I had somewhere to stay. She always made sure that she was with me, so God showed me how much he loved me by working through her before we knew him. Now you're allowing accountability to come into your life. And when you allow accountability to come into your life, by that principle alone means that what you're doing in your life, now you got to look at your own heart and you got to say what's wrong and what's right. What do I got to stop? What do I got to do? What do I got to give up? And what I got to step into? I had to do that myself.
So taking responsibility.
100%. And I'm not downplaying or shedding light on anyone's life that was hard. I lived in crack houses. We had so many addresses. We walked around and we lived in different places. I'm not saying it's easy, but at some point when the rubber hits the road, a man and a woman has to make that choice.
So I want to move it a little further, but I want to comment on everything that he said real quick because I have some thoughts on that. I thought that was a great dialogue. So if you noticed, if you notice, he found greater meaning, he found purpose. In this case, it would be related to God. And then once they find greater meaning and purpose, then accountability has a good way to filter because it filters through that accountability and purpose. So as you said, he wasted life. I'm hopeless. I don't care. So you can't feed into that and then expect them to stop their addiction. I mean, they could play you a little bit, but at the end of the day, if they believe that their life is wasted away and they're hopeless, then they'll sell you something just to get the next fix or to get you out of their way, to get their next fix. But if you're able to introduce them to something that's a greater meaning or greater purpose, like as I said, some mothers have their children, all of a sudden they know that they're responsible for somebody else, and they go through the struggle because they have greater meaning and greater purpose. Their accountability is related to that greater purpose. You know, what's funny is we tend to think accountability comes from punishment and deterrence. It's not. It's the accountability of how you hold yourself to a greater purpose. So when you have a mother who is, or a person who becomes a drug addict and then becomes a mother, some of them will wake up and see their accountability in the role of a mother and what they're expected to do. And it could be life-changing for them, because at one point they only cared about themselves, but now they have a life that they're responsible for. And for others, they don't care. It kind of says a lot about who the person was before they got into the addiction, and the map to bring them back to that person, if that person was a good person, but the addiction just overrode their decision making. You know, but then you have some people that just really weren't good people, and then they just become addicted. And to be honest with you, any efforts to change them may not work because you never really had a good anchor to begin with. You know, so it's always good to know who that person was. That's why you see when, even on the channel, the people that talk about, like say Gabrielle, Maribel, whatever, they talk about how good they were. So you can, one, see where the addiction took them to, but also see where they need to go back to. So I think that matters. And again, that's a lot on who the person is. I got to kind of speed through it because we're kind of getting a little bit longer than I thought. This part, I do want to show you. It's what happens when they get released back to the same area after they go through positive, like a rehabilitation program. So while you're watching this, someone spends 30 days away from drugs, they're sober, they're physically healthier, and they return directly to the same neighborhood, the same people, the same dealers, the same instability, no stable housing, and very little long-term support. What should we realistically expect? So even in this clip, so there's different approaches when it comes to dealing with addiction. One is to eliminate things that cause the addiction, but then you don't develop willpower. And the other is developing willpower. So you can turn down the addiction because you can't control what life is going to put in front of you. So again, this really deals with the strength of the person, their willpower. Because in the end, I can't promise you a world that's going to eliminate these addictive choices for you. But you can promise yourself in how you want to deal with those choices. That promise is not made from any external help. It's made from what you do for yourself.
From your perspective, we're doing a video with Buddy today in The Rock, and on Greater Kensington. As far as the city goes, you're obviously taking attention to this situation because you're here. What are your thoughts?
Well, listen, I live in the neighborhood. I live a couple blocks away. I'm at G and Allegheny, right in the heart of it. That's why I ran. Because, to be honest with you, I'm in recovery, and we were thinking more about the actual struggling addicts out here than we were the residents and the children who have to live here and watch these people up their neighborhood. I got a little bit of a more unique perspective because I've been there. You know what I mean? I know that it can be done. I know recovery is here, and that's why places like The Rock are so instrumental in us helping change this neighborhood over again. You know, it's all wrapped into one. It's about giving these people a chance at a real life again, like I got. You know, it's for me, it's about us bundling all the services into one. And throwing as many services at the problem as we can until we figure out which services are the ones that we really need and which ones we can phase in.
So would one policy help the situation a lot? That being, it can't be an open air drug. I don't know the title you call it.
Open air drug market. Yeah, that's actually it.
It can't be an open air drug market.
And we're going to get that under control.
Oh, that's going to turn around?
The honest thing is, we did it before. It's just, you know, every 8 years, say, the mayor changes and a new mayor comes in and they have different things. So I was in the administration under John Street. We cleaned up this area. We shut down 390 open-air drug markets in the city of Philadelphia. Cleaned out 40,000 abandoned autos where they were hiding the drugs and stuff like that on these blocks.
So what was the point of reversing that policy?
I want to just mention something, though. So I haven't worked in a prison, whatever it is. When there's a supply, it's going to find its way to the addict. So I get you could get props for, you know, closing down the areas that you know. but then you're going to open up areas that we don't know. That's the biggest concern. Even the prison setting, you have to deal with the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. If I close down this area in which I know drugs are coming in, it's only going to open up in another area that we're not aware about. So you have to make sure that you have everything in play before you make that effort, which means that you have to have every possible way that pressure is going to leak out into other areas. So I get it. Hey, great job. Close down what the obvious is. But that doesn't stop the problem, because the problem is going to then become more secretive and hidden in areas that you're not aware about. So it's tough. It's if there's a demand, suppliers will meet that demand. It's just too lucrative a market, and addicts, they're going to find the supplier. So again, it's great. It shows something on the surface that's being done, especially if it's so out in the open. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be done, but it's not the ultimate solution. And I don't want people to think that it is. It just brings it into other areas where you may not know where it exists anymore. So I want to be careful here, because I don't want to say I don't appreciate the effort. 100% has to be done. You got shit happening out in the open, you got to do it. But you also have to recognize that's the beginning, not the end. Now it's a matter of what are we doing at that point after we immediately eliminate those options before they could develop new ones. How are we getting to them right now? So it's like everything's got to run in partnership together. But again, part of that partnership is the addict. You have to remember they ultimately pretty much are the ones that have the final choice over the efforts we're providing. We're only providing efforts. They're providing the outcome. So I love the fact that they're bringing it up. I just don't want people to think this isn't, real world politics. This isn't an automatic, oh, we got it, we'll just do this. No, because once you do that, then they're going to get their supply. You have to know they're going to get their supply. So do we know where they'll go next? It's just, it's great as an initial effort, but it's not going to stop the problem. So as this person quickly says, yeah, we've done all these things. That's great. But if you thought that was going to be the solution, you're foolish, or the only part of the solution.
Whoever did that.
Well, it's people come in with their own ideas and they try to add to it or take stuff away that they didn't think was working, and that's where it lies in. So right now, what we're trying to do is take our best practices, the stuff that we know that works,
Okay.
and do that.
Okay.
Get rid of the stuff that we know is not working, and try to figure out what we have to do in order to make it all adhesive. So for us, what we're doing is we're leaning towards, as a city now, long-term recovery.
Okay.
We want to have these people so that they can go in, have the best chance at coming out and everything. And the way we do that is through long-term treatment with all services wrapped into one. You cannot send somebody to rehab and then send them back to here 30 days from now and say, you're recovered. It's it. Come on.
It's all good.
Go get it. No.
Take some Suboxone.
Right. Yeah. No, you got to have both. They got to have a place to go. We need housing.
And then
we're looking at that.
You can't just have housing but no rehab.
Right, exactly. It's got to be all in one. It's got to be, listen, there's a lot of great groups, especially here.
Yeah.
An AA and NA house right around the corner, the last stop.
Yeah.
Adequately made. You know what I mean? We need more of that. There are places. The bottom line is that people get sober from other alcoholics and addicts. You know what I mean? More than they would. You learn at a rehab. People have the wrong idea about what a rehab actually is. When they go into rehab, they learn about what sent them there in the first place, the dopamine responses, the chemical imbalances, all them technical and stuff like that. But where they really learn how to be recovered, my colleagues, none of them are in recovery but they. You know what I mean? So they didn't know what recovery was at all. When I explained to them that for somebody in recovery, a safe injection site is like one of the number one things we don't do. You do not enable another person to get high. That's the number one thing. We do not let and enable somebody to get high. That's it. It's easy.
Right. Okay. But he didn't address the one issue that they were trying to resolve, which was the spread of diseases. So again, you get concerns that don't sit on either side of a spectrum, somewhere in the middle. So people will sell the part that's working and then minimize the other side, the part that's not being addressed. So again, you have some people trying to look at everything collectively and trying to push things forward. Now, unfortunately, you have one side trying to address the diseases, but it enables. So people will sell one side over the other when the answer is somewhere. And this is a very complicated middle discussion. So when he says it's easy, it's not, because you're not taking into account the concerns that they were initially trying to address. And by the way, that doesn't change the mindset of the user either. So I guess, I'm not saying you want to encourage drug use, but you're trying to solve a concern that's extremely complex, and you can't just sit on one side or the other. I don't like when they keep on saying it's easy. It's not that easy, because if it was, it would have been resolved.
We don't think that's a way of calming down the other HIV and hepatitis part of it. We just decided that we're not spending our money on that. We're not going to spend our money on something that's going to help them to enable them to get high.
Yeah.
We're going to spend our money on the treatment end of things. There's plenty of money for them things, but us as a city, we're not paying for it.
Yeah, sounds like a little common sense is coming back into the mix.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, cool.
We're trying, man. Thank God it didn't take us as long as it took for San Francisco to realize that it's going in. Washington State, they decriminalized all drugs. And now the same people that did that just reversed it on themselves.
So, I mean, this is where it becomes, because it's just, agenda driven. But again, to be honest with you, the problem, yes, it requires our efforts, of course. I'm not minimizing that, but you got the choice of the user. That's where, if you want to solve the issue, it's the choice of the user. That's out of our control. And sometimes we try to make things look a little bit more simple by saying that these things are in our control when they're not. It's the choice of the user. That's why you're finding all these different roads trying to address different things, thinking that this will put things into their control when it's not in their control. It's in the control of the user. And when someone says, well, it's easy, it's not. Because you're dealing with human behavior, you're dealing with addicts, you're dealing with the persistence of wanting that fix. So it's not as simple. If it was, shit, we wouldn't have Raymond Horsches of the world taking advantage of people. So again, this I thought was a great dialogue to kind of give us some insight in what this area is like, looking at addiction. I guess we're waiting for the next updates to come in, so I thought there's an area here that we could look at and try to understand a little bit more. I try to be a little bit more balanced. Again, I don't have an answer to any of these concerns. This is more of us to begin the dialogue. I hope people respect that. I understand what people are trying to do, and I don't want to minimize one choice over the other, thinking it's as simple as that. I don't think it is as simple as that. I mean, I grew up in my profession too, and I start to see things a bit differently, especially as you move up. You get greater responsibility over these people that are addicts. You wind up becoming responsible for their choices at some level when you work in a prison. So, you're forced into their world and trying to find decisions where you need them to be motivated, because ultimately you try all these things and it doesn't work, and then eventually you wind up being face to face with that user, and you're just like, what the fuck? Because now we're both in on this now, because if God forbid I have another, let's say a drug overdose, I'm responsible for that outcome. So now your choices are affecting me. So I really got to understand who this user is, have this one-on-one. Why are they using, and try to see if there's something that we can build that brings them back to who they used to be, if that's even relevant. Even if that helps me, because I'll tell you something, when you're dealing with addiction, who they were is important, because that can give you a North Star, or it could say, well, now I need to create something new. This person doesn't even have the anchor. And I've seen that. I've talked to people where I can build on that. You got kids, you got family, you got something there. I can build on that. It seems that they're important to you. I can build on that. And when I say build, I mean the facility, the resources we have there, from social services to mental health, medical, all that. But when you have somebody that doesn't have that and considers their life worthless, has no hope, and won't even admit they have a problem, you can't build on what doesn't exist. You have to create. And that's a whole nother approach. I think a lot of people have this thing where they want to push everything and clump it together. It doesn't work that way. I think one of the efforts here is understanding if I have someone that I can kind of build them up to where they used to be, or if there's someone I have to create. And there's different approaches. And then sometimes when you get people that don't want to take programming, it only messes up the people who do. Because sometimes they may be all put together in the same thing, and without the proper motivation, the class that is motivated winds up, unfortunately, not getting the best effort because of the person that's not motivated. So I think motivation does matter. But again, I wanted to have this discussion to kind of show you, I think by understanding the victims, you understand Raymond's attraction. Maybe even Eugene's, but right now it's Raymond. You understand Raymond's attraction to those victims. You need money, I can give you money. You need drugs, I can give you drugs. He was able to give them what they need to maintain that fix, always having in control that these were individuals that were addicted. So he had leverage, and he was able to exploit them. And because he had that leverage, they would protect him, because it's always been the fix. So what's consistent in all this is the drugs. And now it goes beyond just their own addiction, the spread of diseases, but rather people that could exploit them. And then later on, you find out hundreds of girls that were missing and now forgotten. They were in this house the whole time. This goes a lot deeper than just the drug problem itself, but rather the vulnerability that now becomes what could be an impossible situation to resolve. There's going to be a lot of people here that are going to look at this and believe that maybe there's an answer here, but can we find that answer? 70,000 videos, 600,000 images, 10,000 documentation, paperwork. I bet you right now there's a lot of people that are flooding that police department with missing individuals that they know went to that area. So I think this case has a lesson here, and this case can help us lead to prevention where we don't have a Raymond Horsch that can operate over a decade minimal, maybe close to 2 decades or more, untouched. They need to know that that community is also protected, because predators look where there's the least amount of risk. And right now, maybe somewhere along the line, from what I'm hearing, not providing some level of safety in regards to if I have a concern, I'm not taken into consideration because of my lifestyle. You know, I get it. It's not easy. This is also not cut and dry. But when the protection is gone, predators come in. And Raymond saw this community as vulnerable and just weighed his risk. And there wasn't any. And he acted. And I don't know what the hell with Eugene or whatnot, but he succeeded. And as always, guys, the show is Chair Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you when I post a video. Stay safe.